Parasprints coach, Joe McDonnell. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me along.
Thank you very much for giving up your time. So for the audience who might not know who you are, could you give us a bit of background, what you do at the university, who you work with?
As you said, I'm the head of Parasprints. Currently, my group have got Tom Young, who won a gold medal at the Paralympics last year. Got Sean Burrows, who ran at the Paralympics last year. I coach Kadina Cox, who's a cyclist and a sprinter. And I also coach Amy Hunt, who's the junior 200 metre world champion.
Wow.
So that's currently who I've got within my group.
Right. Not a bad CV.
Absolutely not a bad CV. And we've got a couple of really good prospects coming along as well.
So how have you become to be part of Loughborough University? What's your journey from? Did you play sport when you were younger to becoming at this point where you are now? What's your journey? What does your journey look like?
I played sport when I was younger. It was just something that we all did because there was nothing else to do. I mean, back when I was young, I think just about electricity and running water nowadays. But my background when I was a kid, I grew up in Dublin, so the majority of the sports that I played was Gaelic football and hurling and a little bit of soccer. When I moved away from Ireland, I moved to Jersey. I did a little bit of boxing in Dublin as well, did a bit of boxing in Jersey, played rugby in Jersey and played for Jersey. And then just kind of travelled around. When I settled here, when I met Lorraine, who's my wife, one of our daughters, Sophie, was really, really talented. She's a good athlete. And we brought her to the local club, which is, if the people can see the camera behind us, which is the one that's behind us. And the coach used to turn up on a Monday and not turn up on a Wednesday or not turn up the next week. So I just started coaching because I'd taken a leisure management diploma through the college and through the university. And so I kind of got into coaching like that. But I'd always coached and never realised I was doing it.
Yeah.
Because everywhere I went and played sport, I'd end up taking sessions. So it's just something that I just really enjoyed.
Yeah. So how has that shaped your life? It sounds like it shaped it in a massive way, but...
Yeah, and I mean my sport now that I coach is sprints. I was never a sprinter. I did throw the javelin.
So how did you get to sprinting now? Wow.
Because of my daughter, because the coach didn't turn up. And so me and a chap called Dave Walsh, who's now one of the heads at UCAD, it's a nice story, there was 9 children in the group. 2 of them were Dave's and 3 of them were mine. I've got 3 daughters. And so there was 4 random other kids. And then we took over that little coaching setup with Charmwood. And within 18 months, there was 85 kids in that group.
Right, wow.
And to this day, if you come down, that was 20 years ago, and if you come down to Charmwood on a Monday or a Wednesday night, there's a waiting list for kids to come in because we set up such a good, sustainable process for kids to come in and learn all the different sports.
Yeah. When I sort of, it sounds ridiculous, when I was reading around you, Joe, and I was sort of looking at the people that you work with, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, or resonated with me, was part of our ethos in the elite pathway is we sort of make it very known to our students that potentially they might not have a career at the highest level in sport. We sort of say it's really important that they stay within education. And what I read, and I hope you don't mind me sort of reading this off the screen, is that something that you've said is that you always make sure that your younger athletes are within formal education and you won't train them unless they still are within education. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the athletes come in, if they're of education age, so I've had some athletes come in that have finished GCSEs and they're talented sprinters, and I've said you need to do education on top of this. I currently have an athlete that kind of got funded.
Yeah.
And kind of said, oh, well, I don't need to go to school now because I get funded. And I went, no, you need to go to college or university, whatever your grades allow you to go and do, go and get an education. And I don't care if that's 2 hours a week, 5 hours a week, full time, whatever your demands can allow you to do. if they're elite sports people, the likelihood is what you want to do is stretch their education out a bit so they can have a really good balance of being able to go be educated, build up a career for themselves, because every sport is short-lived.
Absolutely.
It's a short-lived journey, and it can also be taken away from you really quick.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in football or if you're an athlete, if you're funded by UK sport on your APA to be an athlete, you'd like to think that you'll get some longevity.
Yeah.
So you may get, 2 Olympic or Paralympic cycles, or maybe 3 if you're really lucky. In reality, that's 8 or 12 years.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that any of the audience that you've got that are watching this will be able to look and go, who are the highest paid sports people from an athletics point of view or from a football point of view? Very, 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 very few people get to that point.
Absolutely.
So it's really important. It's also important that people have a distraction outside of the sport.
Yeah.
Because to be totally focused on what you're trying to do, which is great, it can also be really detrimental to what you do in that sport.
Yeah.
Because then you've got no distraction. And I have seen really talented athletes have a really bad year or 2 years because they're not been doing education.
Yeah.
And they're so focused on looking at everybody else's results, and you can see other athletes coming in and running better than them or catching up on them, starts to distract them from what they're trying to do, and you have really poor experiences.
Yeah.
And sport is about having a really good mental attitude to what you're trying to do, and it can be so detrimental to your mental health just by focusing on that one thing. It can cause a lot of issues.
It's really interesting to say that, because that's when we first launched the pathway. We sort of sold it as that we were sort of very conscious of their academics and academia within our sort of elite students, but we didn't want them to stop chasing their dreams, and that's obviously still sort of really resonates with me. Have you ever come up against an athlete where they resisted that side of education, where they just said, no, I'm not bothered about education, I just want to focus on that? And if you did, was there anything that you did to try and sort of turn their heads or to sort of change their mind?
I mean, so if you think of some of the athletes that may come in, so some athletes may come in at an age where they've already been through education, and maybe have gone past the educational age. And one of the things that I always speak to athletes is about, regardless of ages, and it's a bit of a negative conversation, but what you're going to do when you're finished.
Yeah. It's short-lived sport, isn't it?
It's so short-lived. And I've got some athletes that retired last year. And
what age would they retire?
Between 29 and 31.
Yeah. There's no age whatsoever.
And in reality, unless you've been one of those sports people, and I suppose kind of football is one of them, isn't it? Where if you've got a career where you're getting paid £300,000 a week, if you've got someone that's giving you some really good advice, you can probably put a nice pension away for yourself.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you're a track athlete and you're funded, you're going to get 20 grand a year. I mean, that's nice. But if you're only doing that for 12 years, that's not a massive amount of money.
No, absolutely not.
That's going to last you until whatever age it is that you want to try. So you have to have a backup plan.
No, I really like that.
What you have to have is something that also enables you to, because at some point you stop being that track star.
Yeah.
At some point you are not that track star anymore, and you have to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
You have to reinvent yourself because you need to go and do something else.
Yeah.
And that's what's really important, is that people understand that you won't get that sponsorship from people because you're not on the track. You're not doing what we need you to do.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, Joe. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. So you've coached 3 Paralympic gold medalists, 4 world champions, probably many more. What's your secret? What do you put that down to? I know you're probably very modest, and it's a lot to do with the athlete, but you've got to take a certain amount of credit from that. What is your secret? Or is there one?
No, I don't think there is. One of the things. So for me, my absolute philosophy when I have athletes that come in is that, and we've already said, athletes have a window of opportunity. Now, even if you're never going to be a world champion or an elite athlete, everybody's got a window of opportunity in their maturation, so as they're getting older, to develop. So if that happens between certain ages, the human body is at its strongest and most elastic when it's 25.
Right.
So if I take Amy Hunt, for instance, so Amy Hunt's come in, super talented girl, was being massively, in my eyes, it was just being overtrained, and so it was just starting to plateau off. She came in at, 14, 15 years old. 14, 15 years old, I know what my daughters, I was saying, are you going to pictures with your friends? Are you going to go to a sleepover with your friends?
Yeah.
And it's really important that people have a really good balance.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy for the thing that you're really successful at, that you love, to become something that, as soon as that success stops, you hate.
Yeah.
And that's terrible and that's sad.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is have a balance. So I always look at an athlete when they come in. If an athlete comes in at 17, 15, 16, it's a project.
Yeah.
It's a project until the athlete reaches that peak. The majority of athletes that set personal bests from a sprint's point of view are generally between the ages of 23 at elite level and 27. So there's no point in me trying to thrash an athlete on the track to make him the best they're ever going to be at 19.
Yeah.
Because if I want them to have longevity in the sport and be successful in the sport and hopefully earn money that allows them to have a pension, it's my job as a coach to look and go, let me develop that individual as their body naturally wants them to develop.
And where do the parents play a part in that? Because you must have faced parents where they're sort of so fixated on their son or daughter becoming an Olympic champion, a Paralympic champion. You must come up against some pushy parents. How do you cope with that?
I generally just explain exactly as I said to you. I kind of go, look.
I think that's it, because what I've been hearing, I've got a young family, I've got 2 young boys, and I would love them to do something in sport through my background, but the sort of more I listen to people like you, it sort of really resonates that me pushing them into what I think they would want to do is totally ridiculous.
Yeah, well, look, there's a thing around, it's absolutely crucial that parents support their kids. I have seen really talented athletes that have no support from their family,
and there is the other side
that
of
have
it.
gone out of the sport.
Yeah.
And they've gone out of the sport not because they didn't like the sport, but because nobody celebrated with them.
Yeah.
And celebration doesn't mean that someone has to win something.
Yeah.
You don't just celebrate with someone just because they've ran a PB or that they've won a medal. The fact that someone that gets on the start line and finishes and has an objective in what they're doing. So I never set time objectives for my athletes.
Right.
I never say to them, now we know that there's a time that they'll have to hit to qualify for something. But if they've already done that, I don't set time objectives for my athletes.
Yeah.
What I do set objectives within that race. So it could be, we've been working really hard on your blocks and your drive phase. That's your objective today.
Yeah.
Do that bit really, really well. Because if you do that well, the next bit will go well. And then when that bit is good, then we look at the next bit.
Yeah.
So if I look at Tom Young in 2019 in Dubai lost the gold medal at the World Championships by 0.02 of a second. It's about the width of a vest, right? And he lost that race because about 8 strides out, he took a slight overstride, which makes you kind of push yourself backwards a bit, sort of slows you down. And the Chinese athlete just came up on him and won the race.
Yeah.
Now, when we went to Tokyo, the Chinese athlete was a favourite to win that race. But me and Tom, since 2019, have done a bit of work, so he understood the objective of how you finish off a race.
Yeah.
And Tom, in Tokyo, won the race and ran 10.94, smashed his PB out of the park, and the Chinese bloke ran 11 seconds, which was his average time for that year.
Yeah.
So you work on average time and you work on objectives.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, no, that's interesting. So you talk a lot about the talent that you work with. Where do you sit on nature and nurture? Do you think that anybody could become a professional athlete or an athlete full time, or do you think it's something that you're born with?
That's a really interesting question. I think everybody's got the ability to be a champion. I genuinely believe that. It's just where the opportunity is. And I think parasport is an interesting one to have a look at because it's one of the sports that you see, certainly from a track and field point of view, where people can transfer skills. So it's not unusual. So Kadina Cox to be a gold medalist at a Paralympics running 400 and then go and cycle and win another gold medal.
Yeah.
Now, there's very few sports or arenas of sport that you can do that. And Libby Clegg, world champion, world record holder, retires. She's now in the velodrome.
Yeah.
And knowing Libby the way I know her, she'll probably smash that out of the park as well. So there's a very few sports that you can do that. And so sometimes champion mentality is just in your system.
Yeah.
It's your job to unpick that as a coach and find out where that is.
Yeah.
Some of the athletes that we get that come here to Loughborough University, they're already talented when they get here. My job as a coach is to see what I can add to that.
Yeah.
I don't really need to take much away. Some stuff you have to polish off or try and help with. But it really is about getting into the athlete's head around, what do they want?
Yeah.
What is their desires? What do they need? Because it should be athlete-centred. It should be about the individual. It's not about me as a coach.
Yeah.
It's great that people come along and go, oh, you've had X, Y, Z, world record holders or whatever. But in the nicest way, I didn't run the race.
Yeah.
All I did was facilitate that individual to allow him to get on the track. One of the things that I generally pride my coaching career on is that when I go to major championships with my athletes, they perform.
Right.
My job is to develop them so that they're ready at the right time to go and execute what they want to do. Tom Young in Tokyo, Libby Clegg in Rio 2, Sophie Han in Rio. Amy Hunt, when she ran at the European. It's just about getting athletes to the right place at the right time. And you don't have to force that.
Yeah.
What you have to do is nurture and allow the athlete to develop.
Yeah.
Also knowing that it's not always going to go great, but it's that reality check, it's that objective check. Did you hit your objective for today?
Yeah. No, I really like that.
Are you better today than you were yesterday?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you have to, pull up trees.
Yeah.
It's just that gradual increase of ability to allow an athlete to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. But, Joe, the way you speak about the athletics is completely inspirational. We always round off our episode by asking our guest if they had sort of one bit of advice for their younger selves. Would they change anything, or would you do anything differently? If you could go back to growing up would you do anything differently?
I can't remember back that far. I suppose what I might do differently. I was really, really fortunate that I grew up in an era where nobody really had anything. Nobody really had any money. And what would I do differently? I probably would have. So I left school when I was. So at home in Ireland it was called a group certificate. So as soon as I did that, that was it. I was gone. I think I would have liked the opportunity to learn more.
Yeah.
My best education has been travelling. I started travelling when I was 18 years old, going to different countries, learning different things. It was a great education. And the thing that I didn't get an opportunity to do because it was only for people that kind of had wealth that could go and do. I would have liked the opportunity to just be inquisitive and learn more. It probably would have ended me up in a different place. So I'm really fortunate where I am now.
Yeah.
But I think, it's like I said with the athletes, and they get it because the sport is so important to them, and I absolutely get it.
Yeah.
Because it's the absolute be all and end all of the focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes you need a distraction.
Yeah.
Get a distraction that allows you to appreciate your sport.
I agree. Well, Joe, you've been excellent, and thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.